and the progress of our civilization. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our U.S. Transhumanist Party Virtual Enlightenment Salon. Today is Sunday, June 28th, 2026. So this is our final salon for the first half of 2026. We've remained consistent with offering you high-quality, rational discussions every week. So today, we will have a thought-provoking discussion on wisdom. What does it mean? What advantages does it confer? And we have our panel of U.S. Transhumanist Party officers joining us today, including our Director of Visual Art, Art Ramon Garcia, and our Director of Community and Citizen Science, who was our 2024 U.S. Vice Presidential candidate, Daniel Tweed. And our special guest today is a returning guest. We've always had fascinating conversations with him. He is Dr. Sharif Uddin Ahmed Rana. He is our South Asia liaison. He possesses more than 15 years of progressive experience as a researcher, talent economist, designer, system thinker, entrepreneur, mentor, educator, policy analyst, and innovator in data and AI. He is dedicated to the dissemination of knowledge, mentorship, and human success. He develops his expertise based on sustainability as applied to people, projects, and policy analysis. He enjoys working with diverse youth populations and is enthralled by the opportunity of developing optimal educational practices. He has published empirical papers in leading international journals based on modeling and analysis of primary data-developed strategies and consulted companies on project management and business development. He is a passionate faculty member who has won awards for excellence in experiential teaching. His current research interests include the integrated world of sustainable development goals, education and entrepreneurship, people and project management, and impact investment. And he has expertise in various statistical tools as well, including SAS, Stata, Python, R, structural equation modeling, and SPSS. Now, the way in which we have been connected to Sharif over the years was through the World Talent Economy Forum, which is a show that he hosts on his YouTube channel. And he has streams pretty much every day. He is a man of tireless energy. We were talking before the start of our salon about how he has so much energy to continue working with teams, with thinkers all over the world. And he has joined us at 2 a.m. in Bangladesh. It's just remarkable. And we are grateful to you, Sharif, for the time that you are sharing with us. I also want to highlight the previous virtual enlightenment salons that Sharif joined us for, because he was our guest of honor before, as far back as 2022, when he talked about the World Talent Economy Forum, what it has to offer. So please watch our salon that aired on June 19th, 2022. And then Sharif was back in February 2023 for another salon on Nikola Tesla technologies and smart cities. And also in 2023, Sharif was kind enough to host our 2024 US presidential candidate, Tom Ross, who made a visit to Bangladesh. He met with a lot of educators, with a lot of government leaders there, and he came back with some detailed impressions. So you can watch our salon of April 23rd, 2023 to learn more about that. And Sharif was a participant in that salon as well. So Sharif has really opened our perspective to a lot of the developments in South Asia and in Bangladesh in particular. That's his home country. He knows it well. And there have been recent events in Bangladesh, which we will be quite curious to ask him about. But for now, Sharif has written this book, which is called The Wisdom Advantage. And you can order it online. Here's the website. I will keep it up here. But it's an intriguing book with an intriguing subtitle, Timeless Principles for Living, Leading, and shaping the future. And of course, a lot of philosophical traditions, a lot of cultures have talked about wisdom over the centuries and millennia. But one of Sharif's main points is wisdom offers practical advantages to people in the present day for navigating the challenges of the very turbulent era in which we live. So I'm very intrigued about this book. I'm intrigued to learn more. So welcome, Sharif. We'll add your presentation here to our stage, and you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. How you supporting me from day one. Specifically, I want to give thanks to all of the Transhumanist Party's advisors, leaders, and so on. I'm a Bangladeshi man. Last 20 years of time, I visit and travel around the world, from North America to Australia to Europe and Asia Pacific, around the world. And we build up World Talent Economic Forums. There is no difference in between Transhumanist Party and World Talent Economic Forum. Transhumanist Party more focus on modern science, engineering, and technology. And World Talent Economic Forum, the same way we do focus on science and innovations and people development. But one thing I always try to find out, what is the core component we can add in between Transhumanist Parties and World Talent Economic Forum? You know, I write around 30 scientific books, more than 300 research papers, develop around 30 startup and tech companies, train around 10,000 young people around the world. I identified that wisdom is something which will be very valuable for the communities. So what is wisdom? From day one, we have to identify a good symbol, the ethical practice, the ethical norms and values for the society. If you come to Bangladesh, like Tom Ross, you can find that South Asia is full of spirituality. You go to India, you go to Pakistan, you go to Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and everywhere. Here, spiritual activities is very high. The same way, when definitely I have experience to work in Stanford and MIT and Harvard, and I find that transhumanist parties, you have a lot of good technology for healthcare, right? For AI, for quantum computing, for a lot of science and innovations. But one thing, I think that the wisdom practice, which is very, very important. Even as a political, I have a strong political connections around the world. Even my family has a strong involvement with the politics and so on. And my World Talent Economic Forum, 4 members, they become ministers and political members in Bangladesh right now, like cultural minister, religious minister, education minister, social welfare ministers, and so on. And they are inviting all time these innovative things in Bangladesh. So why I am discussing this point, like if I just find a symbol of wise people, definitely I want to give thanks to Kennedy. You look like a very wise man, very kind man. Even many of the transhumanist parties, I can think about David Schumacher, David Woods, many good peoples I meet with, Tom Ross, and many good peoples I meet there. So you are the symbol of wise people, right? You are the symbol of kind peoples. Why are you doing this? Because you want to make impact. So as a responsible person for Transhumanist Party in South Asia, I think wisdom is something, if we practice together, it will bring more success. And it's not only religious things. I just want to say, in every religion, in Quran, in Bible, in Torah, in Zabur, in Ved, every single, even in Aristotle, in Plato's, even in the transhumanist philosophy, it has wisdom. So what is the wisdom advantage? Timeless principle for living, leading, and shaping the future. So in my books, I identify 3 things. Number 1, living, personal growth, self-awareness, and ethical decision-making. Number 2, leading. Let's say we need good leaders, like a transhumanist party's leader, like Kennedy. Inspiring teams, building trust, like any point, even if right now I'm in Bangladesh, I can trust Kennedy's that and you have a purposeful visions. And shaping is a sustainable innovations, building a resilient future. That is our thoughts. So always we gather a lot of data. From data, we gather our knowledge, but wisdom is something special. Wisdom is the integrated capacity to perceive deeply, judge rightly, act ethically, and live purposefully. So what is knowledge? Raw understanding of the fact, system, context, and the raw materials of wisdom. What is experience, which is very important? Hard-on lessons drawn from the action, failure, reflections, and the growth. Judgment, which is very important. The refined ability to discern the truly matters most of any situation. So any situation you have to be very positive, very good and ethical persons. And virtue is the ethical courage, which is very, very important. I find many transhumanist parties, good leader, they have these four kind of thing. That's why I proposed first time after I published my books that how I can share my views about wisdom. So there are three things I always want to share in between my framework. One is inner wisdom, like self-awareness, daily reflections, emotional intelligence, value alignment in all decisions, and finally, mindfulness. Example, in Islam, we call it hikmah. We call it amale salih, good work, intention to do good work. In Western worlds and in the Buddhism or other part, we can call it mindfulness. In India, it's called Karma Jog, Gyan Jog. In Japan, they call it Kokoro. So what is rational wisdom? Which is very, very important for the global political parties. I think that empathy, servant leadership, trust building through consistency, wise conflict resolution skills, collaborative approach, how we can collaborate, World Talent Economic Forum or transhumanist parties and other group of people. And this way we can go for strategic wisdom, long-term system thinking. We can build up ethical innovations by design. We can go for broad multi-stakeholder perspective and building adaptive resilience always. So inner wisdom is very, very important in Islam, in Hinduism, even in Christianity and everywhere. So there is no difference in between Muslim, Christian, Jewish, Buddhas, Hindus. Every religions come up with the idea of wisdom and inner peace. So what is the key practice? Reflect daily in stillness, align choice with your core values, learn and grow from every failures, stay radically curious and open. Practice is very important in our religions and every religion, even in Silicon Valley, I find that they do not believe in God, but they go for meditations as a community. I like it. So practice is a regular reflection, revolve, blind spot, and it clarifies your deeper sense of purpose and directions. That's why I always say that meditation is something we can connect each other's. Values. Align every daily choice with your most deeply held convictions. Integrity, inconsistency. Values is very important aspect for us, which is absent. We are observing a lot of war. There are a lot of discriminations. We are killing each other. So values is something we need to add in our society, in our political parties, and so on. So every setback is raw data, vital material for making a wiser, better information is next decisions, and cultivate curiosity. Let's say I'm very curious about transhumanist party. I'm very curious about human. I'm very curious about human progressions and so on. Ethical leadership, which is very important for me, and ethical leadership is very important for these wisdom affairs. The measures of a leader is not the power they hold, but the trust they earn. Let's say Gandhi, you earn the trust of the people. That is your power. So what is the most 4 important component for us? Number 1, principle of transparency. We have to lead with radical honesty at all time. We have to create principle of accountability, own all your outcomes, not just the win. Principle of service, leadership is the fundamentally providing services to the people. Principle of consistency, that real integration is for force in your heart set. So we have to be consistent to provide, let's say, political supports, developing policy, go for innovations, helping people, and so on. Why is decision making always important in our framework as a human? So I want to say wise means witness, inquiry, synthesize, and enact. Personal growth through wisdom is very, very important. We need to grow. So how we can do that? We have to create awareness, recognize recurring patterns in your thoughts, habit, and choice. We have to go for reflections, draw meanings and lasting lessons from your life experience. We have to go for integrations, embody those lessons into daily characters. And contributions, apply your wisdom to create real, tangible value for others. Let's say Transhumanist Party, you are applying through your salon, you are organizing conference, you are sharing your knowledge and expertise and so on. And legacy, through this way, we can build enduring impact that outlasts your own lifetime. So legacy is very important. In a spiritual world, in philosophical aspects, Aristotle's focus on practical wisdom. Also, we do find the right actions, how we can take. Buddhist has mindfulness. Confucius has virtue and ethics and social harmony. And Ubuntu philosophy, I am because we are. Islam also has their own philosophy. We are doing work for the humanity, for the better world. So what we can do as a practice, right? We have to take some practice. Weekly, we can reflective journaling practice, like a saloon. We can share our knowledge. We can go for analysis before major decisions. We can make our decisions and we can go for analysis. We can go for stakeholder empathy mapping in strategy. I call it 10-10-10 rules. Impact. You can see that our World Talent Economic Forum has small impact, but after 7 years, it became a huge impactful thing. So daily micro commitment is a core values for creating wisdom, for adding wisdom in our philosophies and so on. Trust, building trust, which is very, very important. Where World Talent Economic Forums and these transhumanist parties can work, we can create trust in between global North and South Asia. Trust is very important. Trust is not given. It's built bricks by bricks through consistent act of wisdom, honesty, and service. So these 4 things I always focus on: consistency, do what you say; vulnerability, admiring uncertainty, building far more trust than projecting false confidence; generosity, give credit freely to others; and commitments. Trust needs both strong characters and demonstrations capabilities. This way, we can improve our capacity, what I call talent economy, right? Human can develop themselves. So what type of integrations we can bring? We can ask ourselves, why I said that meditation is something. We can purify our heart. We can develop empathy and sympathy. We can create a relations with the natures. Ask why, not just how. Anticipate second order effect. Include the excluded. Fail forward wisely. Ethics as a design of principle. Measure what the truly matters. So ethical principle is most important factors for Bangladesh, for North America, for India, for Africa, for around the world. And in politics, we need to welcome ethics. So resilience is not thoughtless. It is the wisdom to bend without breaking and to grow precisely because of the wisdom. So we need four things. Number one, we need radical acceptance, acknowledge reality exactly as it is. So we have to understand the situations. We need growth mindset. I believe that all of the transhumanist people has growth mindset. We need to develop a communities. Let's say World Talent Economic Forums and transhumanist parties has community and connections. And we have to be adapted response. Resilience is not just bouncing back to where you were. It is the bouncing forward, wiser, stronger, and more consistent way. Share visions. Creating culture where collective wisdom is built, shared, and sustained. So share visions, psychological safety, diversity of thoughts, learning loops, cultures, and ethical guideline is very, very important for this framework. And right now, country like Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, we have a lot of challenge. So we need to create a resilient society, maybe based on climate and ecology, based on technology, what transhumanists always discuss about AI, quantum computing, and so on, with social justice, which is very, very important, governance and policy. I know that Transhumanist Party always advocating better policy for the society. This is the good symbol and mapping and the framework for resilient futures. So in the age of technology, artificial intelligence amplify human capability. Only wisdom can ensure it amplifies our humanity. So wisdom practice is very, very important in AI era because AI doing a lot of jobs. So we need something which is wisdom. Wisdom can manage, and through wisdom we can take care of these new innovations and so on in an ethical way. So this way we can living a life of legacy. 4 questions always asked. We ask for legacy. Number 1, what is the story I'm telling? Number 2, who is wiser, kinder? Number 3, what is meaningful problem? And what brings values in my life? So there are some practice we always perform in our South Asia. We can go for in the morning time, you can go for meditations or for prayers or for some sort of strong engagement with the environment. Midday, you can go for practice deep and genuine listening. Notice your emotional state without judging. In the evening, you can go for reflect on 1 key lessons learned today, acknowledge 1 act of courage and kindness, and plan for tomorrow. And weekly, you can read maybe Quran or Bibles. Even transhumanism has their own book, you can read it. So we can go for deeply, honestly, and courageous conversations when we review all good through your purpose lens. So what is the key takeaway I'm getting from here? Number 1, wisdom integrated knowledge, experience, judgment, and virtue. Number 2, inner wisdom is the irreplaceable foundations. Number 3, trust is building through consistency, value alignment behaviors over time. Number 4, wise innovation always asks why before how. And number 5, we need to create our legacy based on nature and humanity and so on. So my books basically focus on being a single decisions. Choose to live, lead, think with greater wisdom. Starting today, read the books, start a daily practice, and share the wisdom. If you have any questions, you can ask me.
Yes, thank you very much, Sharif, for that excellent presentation. And again, I want to refer our viewers to the link, where the Wisdom Advantage can be ordered online. There are many takeaways from your presentation. I'll mention two key ones. First of all, the importance of wisdom has been recognized across various religious and philosophical traditions, whether or not one is a religious person. The principle of wisdom comes up time and again within a wide variety of frameworks. And your presentation did a very good job in bringing that out, which means wisdom is a quality that is core to the human experience more broadly, and people can arrive at it from a variety of directions. But what they arrive at is a set of principles and practices that could, in essence, benefit anyone. And a second insight that I gleaned from your presentation is that wisdom is one of the distinguishing advantages that will endure as a human edge in the age of AI. So artificial intelligence, as you pointed out, will be able to perform many specific tasks as well as or better than human beings. But this wisdom that is an integrated quality that is derived from a wide range of life experiences and practices and applied knowledge from a multitude of domains, but also a special way of approaching that knowledge and approaching other people, that would be difficult for AIs to fully incorporate. Now, AIs may convey aspects of wisdom, pieces, like AIs can read philosophy texts and summarize them, but to practice wisdom consistently over years and decades in many different areas of life, I think remains an enduring human advantage. So thank you for your remarks, and they led me to think along these lines. Now, I want to share some of the feedback that we have from our audience as well. So our friend Rudy Hoffman says, I really like this guy and these thoughts. How about you folks? So thank you, Rudy, and everyone else. Please feel free to add to your thoughts as well. Daniel Tweed writes, greetings to all and congratulations to Dr. Sharif for what looks like a thoughtful presentation message so far, and we'll definitely delve more into Sharif's ideas. Rudy also writes, ask the deeper questions, another rich piece of advice. Thank you very much, Rudy. And he also says, I like this value system. Every setback is raw data. And that is indeed a very positive way of looking at it. As you pointed out, it allows one to learn from the setbacks without being particularly set back by them, at least in terms of one's attitude and one's outlook. And that's not easy to do. I will be honest about that. It's not easy to take a kind of more detached outlook regarding the setback and say, okay, here's what I can learn from it. Here's what it contributes in terms of the data of my aggregate experience. Sometimes it's tempting to be emotionally affected by it. That's kind of the default reaction, and to dwell on the negative effects of the setback. But this is a very interesting approach. Now, Rudy also writes, Tom Ross visited Dr. Sharif in Bangladesh. That would be so interesting. It was so interesting. In fact, I'll bring up the link to our discussion with Tom Ross about his visit. And of course, his experience there was much greater than could be summarized in a 2-hour conversation. But at least we got a good start, a good initial impression of what that visit was like. So if you're interested in learning more, please watch that salon. Now, we have a question from Dr. Mehmet Akif Simsek, and he wonders, how are we going to influence the decision makers to establish the transhumanist path? So there's a bit of wisdom involved in trying to exert that influence in a positive and constructive and effective direction. And we have a related question from Nike Noor, who wonders, how do we build trust for the Transhumanist Party? Any ideas in that regard? And how does this applied wisdom perhaps help us in that endeavor?
Excellent question. There is an experience I want to share with you. Like when I was in Stanford University Product Realization Labs, and that times with Tando, we built up a interesting technology. We call it big heart technology, right? What we are discussing. If you go for this inner thought process of this spirituality and wisdom, actually AI, definitely it has a lot of data, it's very productive and very powerful. But why human is the best of the best in this planet? Because as a human, when your heart and mind, again, your heart and mind work together, people become very productive, right? We call it excellence. We call it beautiful human. We call it wise people, ethical leaders, because you are taking decisions based on your heart, based on your mind. So with Japan, with UN universities, we build up this Kokoro. Kokoro is a big heart technology in Silicon Valley. So if transhumanist leaders like Kennedy, I trust you. Undoubtedly, I trust many of the transhumanist parties, especially like Kennedy. I trust about your political decision because it's my own feelings like you take decision based on your ethics. So when people can understand about the ethical decision making process, ultimately people will trust more about transhumanist party, right? And they understand the leaders making decisions based on wisdom, based on heart and mind. So here is the difference in between technology and human. Human is the great creators of the wisdom. So that is the things I say that from your knowledge, from your experience, from your empathy, your sympathy, you create a wise decisions, wise community. I call it talent economy. People like who is created this technology, right? Human, this AI, this quantum computing, this all of the like SpaceX and healthcare research. So first we have to take care of the human. So if people understand that we are caring about these talented peoples or these communities and we build up the greater community, they will trust more about Transhumanist Party. And that I applied it. It's not like I just write a books. I applied it in the politics, even in Bangladesh. I go for political campaign. I make a urban plan for the people before elections. I do practice it. I meet with 3,000 people. I go for discussions and I find they love it. The same way transhumanist parties can come to Bangladesh like Tom Ross. You can, it's a billions of people in the South Asia and 57% to 60% youth. You can engage with the communities through conference, through your transhumanist idea, through your fine transhumanist philosophy, with your heart and mind. And I'm sure this way transhumanist parties and philosophy can grow and we can build up better communities. And we want to invite you all in Bangladesh and collaborate with our political parties who are in the power.
Yes, thank you very much, Sharif, for that excellent answer. And it's an encouraging answer as well. It leads to a question that was asked by another one of our viewers, John McPherson, who wonders what might be a good example of applying wisdom in a government policy or national level or international level. He writes, I'm assuming that all the wars that are now going on are examples of the lack of wisdom. And also in addition to that, of course, we know there have been various recent political developments in Bangladesh since we last had a virtual enlightenment salon with you, Sharif. So if you could speak to some of the events there and perhaps how they might open up greater opportunities for Bangladesh and also for engagement on transhumanist ideas.
Yeah, very good questions. That is the things I'm working for, right? That's why I offer my books and this presentation and discussion. First, the Transhumanist Party. Why? Because globally you have a lot of members and so on. And secondly, you are a very good political party who can develop better policy for the global communities. Especially, I see that you have a very good success in Africa and so on. So if you want to make this thing successful globally more, my advice that maybe we can develop wisdom-based leadership institutions in USA and in South Asia. We can invite political persons. We can invite corporate leaders or social leaders. Or, in Bangladesh specifically, the youth come to the power after a long time because we do not have democracy at that time. And the young people, around 2,000 people, lose their life because of this political sacrifice and so on. So even the same things, this Gen Z revolution happening in not only Bangladesh, you can see it in Nepal, you can see it in Singapore, Sri Lanka, you can see it even in India, the Cockroach Party, right? So we need to make an alignment based on wisdom. From my experience, trust me, there is no difference in between global north and global south. But many of the political person and the political people, they're utilizing this political will and political power for their personal interests. And that's why we see war, right? We see all of the killings and other things. But if we utilize your wisdom in a proper way, I have many Jewish friends, I have many Christian friends, I have many good friends from Hinduism and Buddhism, even those who are not believers of God and many things. I find people are same. So we need to connect. We need to build up a better communities. We need to roll out these things. And this way, I think internationally you can get more success. And I applied it again. It's not like a theory. It's a more like practice. My philosophy, 20% theory, 80% practice. Not only these dialogues, we go each and every universities, to the political parties, to the corporations. Even we build up wisdom cities in Dhaka. You can come. You can join with your technologies, with your innovation for these wisdom cities and for the sustainabilities and so on. So this is all about sharing and caring. Transformations, what you call human transformation, right? Transhumanist, human transformations. It's all about how we can transform our philosophy, our goodwills, and our wise decisions. People can understand, and then we become good friend and we can build a better community and better political party.
Yes, thank you very much, Sharif, for that response. And we have some feedback from our audience. So Daniel Tweed writes, developing wisdom institutions. Yes. And he also notes in the 18th century, what we do was known as civic virtue. And I think that would apply to what we do here at the Virtual Enlightenment Salons, what Sharif does with the World Talent Economy Forum, and spreading education throughout the world, but in particular in South Asia, and building up institutions of wisdom in Bangladesh. Mike Lazine writes, I love Dr. Sharif's mentality, truly progressive, no tribal mindset nonsense. And thank you very much, Mike, for that comment. I think we need to overcome what is commonly known as tribalism. We need to overcome this idea that one group of people has a monopoly on truth or virtue or goodness. As Sharif's presentation shows, really the essential qualities of wisdom can be approached from a wide variety of traditions and backgrounds. And really what we need to try is get at those beneficial outcomes and habits that can help as many people as possible. And Mike also writes, we are all being wise to listen to our enlightenment salons. Thank you very much for those good words. Of course, Mike Lazine is one of our most dedicated viewers, and we always appreciate his comments. Rudy Hoffman writes, the principles and aspirational goals of the U.S. Constitution and the Transhumanist Constitution, the U.S. Transhumanist Party Constitution, are exemplars of wise governance. So thank you very much, Rudy, for those comments. We also have some interesting comments here from Miss Virginia Mirtes, I believe. She writes, it is necessary to recognize the importance of technology and innovation for the future of humanity, including advances such as artificial intelligence, biotechnology, robotics, and advanced medicine. Life will depend on progress in these areas. She notes that she hails from Paraíba, Brazil, so we have some viewers on the South American continent as well. And she further writes, above all, it is essential to recognize the work of scientists who invest their wisdom, dedication, and time in something truly important for everyone. And I'm curious, Sharif, along these lines. So you have the International Space Station as part of your background, and while you're coming to us from Bangladesh, essentially spiritually, you are in space right now. And you stated before we went live that to you, space and the development of space have a spiritual significance. And I wonder if you could speak more to that, as well as the connections to science. So it seems that in your view, science and spirituality, science and wisdom can be combined in some interesting ways. And I would be curious to hear more from you on that subject.
Yes, thank you. Very good questions. There is two things. One is intelligent person. We have a lot of intelligent person. They know what to do. We have intelligent like scientists, inventors, and so on. Like when you ask me about SpaceX and so on, it's like I work with one of the teams in USA, specifically with this NASA and SpaceX and so on, for this space research. I closely working for space economy and so on. Definitely, I'm a big fan of AI and quantum computing and data centers, specifically micro data centers, building smart cities. So how we can connect? An ethical person, a wise man, actually, he know what not to do. So if you go to this Quran and Bible and Torah and Jabur and Injil, even Gitas and everywhere, you can find that there are a lot of factors that they say you cannot do this or that. I know there are some diversifications and so on, but in terms of wisdom, I find which is very meaningful. Even in Quran, I find Quran strongly indicate about biotechnology, about sustainable development goals, about space research, about artificial intelligence. So as a scientist, we have to invent. So there is no difference. Actually, what you are doing, let's say I'm a Muslim, if I like go for a framework for Gandhi, he's a very good practicing Muslim. He do what Quran says, even he do not read Quran. He's a wise man, right? He's supporting the communities. He's helping community. He build up knowledge-oriented societies. Exactly. So there is no difference, but we are creating difference. We are doing all of the wiring between Iran and Israel or Israel or this and that. But trust me, if you go for deeper and deeper these religious factors, I said my American friends, they are better Muslim compared to Bangladesh. Yeah, I can understand. But fact is that is wisdom, what you are doing. So we need to unveil it. We need to bring this front line that, okay, transhumanist has 20 good leaders. the in between framework, these 5 things they can do. So that is the way people can understand, and we can make a good collaborations with you. Our young people can create a good collaboration with you, right? Our let's say Bangladesh has 171 million people. Around the world, there is around 270 million people speaking Bengali. So they can transfer their knowledge based on your wisdom and so on. So again, one thing, based on all of the political decisions, we should not hate each other. We should love each other. We have to grow our empathy and sympathy, right? We should not go for, I'm the best, I'm most powerful. No, empathy and sympathy. That's why I request, even let's say for developing purpose, we go to USA, let's say Stanford University, for learning technology, Transhumanist Party for learning healthcare research. The same way, you can come to emerging economy to develop your empathy and sympathy, and you can be better leaders, good leaders.
Yes, thank you very much, Sharif. And this is quite insightful from you, that somebody can be a better representative of a particular framework. It could be a religious tradition, it could be a philosophical tradition, than some people who explicitly profess that tradition, because of essentially the key insights as actualized in practice by that person's behavior, by how that person treats other people, how that person acts in day-to-day life. So those, I think, are remarkably important insights that more people should take into account. And Rudy Hoffman writes, I like that this approach to wisdom is independent of any religion. And Mike Lazine says he agrees with the whole thing of wisdom being independent of any particular faith or religion, though, as Sharif points out, multiple faiths and religions essentially get at the same idea of wisdom through a variety of paths. So thank you very much to both Rudy and Mike. Now we have a question from John McPherson again. He writes, one problem is that the powerful people causing problems in the world are the least likely to join such things as wisdom institutions. If grassroots level ideals only stay at the grassroots, how much are we actually helping? And this is where I think you could offer some good commentary, Sharif, because it seems like you have been making inroads within the government of Bangladesh. You have some sympathetic people there who share these ideals. So how is that going? And what advice would you have for those who want to take grassroots ideals and move them into the corridors of power, so that ideally the powerful people, or the people who become powerful, also embody wisdom?
Thank you. Not only Bangladesh, in USA, if you go for California Institute of Management, with all of the famous scientists and the professors from USA, from Japan, and I'm from Bangladesh, we build up leadership institutions, and we inviting 1,000 people there based on wisdom. Our MBA program based on wisdom, our PhD program based on wisdom in France. In Bangladesh, definitely I work with grassroots level peoples. I try to engage with the politics, like how does it work, how it create impact. I told you 4 person from World Talent Economic Forum, they become minister. I help them to develop their campaign based on wisdom. I helps to develop their urban plan and so on based on wisdom. Even our prime minister approved one of the largest project. So honestly speaking, not only these grassroots level people, even the ministers, university, even many billionaires, NGOs, financial institutions, Central Bank of Bangladesh, different diplomats, everybody join in my ecosystem, because I'm telling the truth. Not only that, more than 3,000 venture capitals and financial institution. They said, if you can create wisdom leader, we're going to support these people. Let's say Grameen Bank, right? It's win Nobel Prize for financing and so on, for microfinance. So why I'm discussing these things, according to religious books, you can read and compare. There is no difference. Trust me, there is no difference in between different religions. One thing is common. We have to serve for the humanity. So Transhumanist Party has the best options. You can serve for the humanity, right? You can do the best for the humanity through your political activities. And one and only things, you work from your heart and mind based on your ethical practice. Definitely you will be successful. That is the things we call spirituality. So it's not only grassroots level people. You can find many famous scientists, even Silicon Valley company, IBM, the AI company, quantum computing company, they developed their company based on wisdom with my concept. It's not actually my concept. I want to say that when I was in Stanford, my professors, Dr. Edelman said, all design is redesign. So wisdom is something, it's a 1,000 years before in the human civilization's development, we find this wisdom. So I just redesign it. I try to help you to remember it. Hey, wisdom is something we are missing. Let's work together for the wisdom. Let's collaborate together for the wisdom. Let's develop an ethical practice, ethical society. Trust me, if you follow this way, the transhumanist philosophy and other things will grow very fast.
Yes. Thank you very much, Sharif, for that response. And you provided an example of a political figure who did embody wisdom throughout his life, Dr. Muhammad Yunus, who, by the way, turns 86 years old today. He was born on June 28th, 1940. So happy birthday to Dr. Muhammad Yunus. He is a Nobel Prize winning economist. As you pointed out, he pioneered the idea of microfinance. So he made available small loans to entrepreneurs, to ordinary people in developing countries to enable them to start small businesses that large banks might have ignored. But these people were hardworking, and he recognized that they would pay the loans back. They're also very ethical people, the small entrepreneurs whom he helped. And when the upheavals happened in Bangladesh in 2024, in August 2024, he was called upon to lead the interim government. He was the chief advisor from August 8th, 2024 to February 16th, 2026. And I think looking at his life and his work, one could see a lot of examples of wisdom. And that gives me hope, because generally speaking, especially from some of our experience of American politics over the decades, a lot of us in the Western world can be quite cynical. And there's a history too that justifies that cynicism. And John McPherson also refers to a famous essay from Friedrich Hayek, one of the most insightful economists of the Austrian school, about how the worst get on top. And Hayek indicts the political system that rewards ruthless, calculating sociopaths gaining leadership. And that does happen sometimes, but there are counterexamples as well. And when I look at history, when I look at the best government leaders, they are the people who embodied that kind of wisdom. And I think Muhammad Yunus is a good example of that in recent times. And it seems that after those upheavals that took 2,000 lives and young people demanding for change, it was a very wise decision to install him, because he was the kind of person who could think about how could Bangladesh be reformed structurally. to make sure that those kinds of issues don't arise again. So it's a very interesting kind of situation and very interesting to think about what can happen so that the worst don't get on top, so that the best can get on top. And any ideas from you, Sharif, about how can we have institutions that encourage the best to get on top? Because Dr. Yunus was in office when he was 84 and 85 years old, and he still did a much better job than a lot of younger politicians. So we want people like that to get on top more reliably. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. This is very good things. Even I want to share our present Prime Minister, Tariq Rahman, and his father, Ziaur Rahman and the Khaleda Zia. They are a very good symbol of wisdom leaderships. I see they are living a very simple life and contributing for the grassroots level communities. Very good idea. Why don't we build up a wisdom institutions both in South Asia and in USA with your help, like political institution, right? And we can welcome Dr. Mohammad Yunus, we can welcome Amartya Sen, we can welcome Abhijit Banerjees, all of the Nobel Prize winner. We can welcome other political parties and political persons. Also, we can invite all of the scholars from Western world, right? You have a very big communities in between transhumanist parties. World Talent Economic Forum, with my book or framework, I can be your partners. And it's actually like in between fusion, like that global north and global south come together, and we bring all of the good things together. Even the economical aspect, like this microfinance, let's say you bring climate finance, all of the good things we can come together. And innovation is very important things. You have it, right? You have a lot of good technologies. But my question is that with these good technologies, how you serve for the society, how you serve for the communities, how you help the grassroots level community. Let's say Bangladesh healthcare need a lot of improvement. How transhumanist parties can contribute in healthcare research or this longevity research. We need to improve the education system. Maybe through these wisdom institutions, we can build up a better education system for us. Even I want to welcome, I like Tom because Tom visit Bangladesh. Maybe Kennedy, you can come, or all of our transhumanist parties people, we can organize a good conference. You visit, meet with our prime ministers, meet with our young generations, our corporations, and show your empathy and sympathy, which is important. You never know, you can be a great leader. Maybe from transhumanist party, someone in between 10 years become the president of USA. So this relationship can be helpful. We never know, right? So it's all about fusion. We can learn from each other and we can grow together. And again, always I say, work from heart and mind. You always said I'm hardworking or this and that, many things. I always listen my heart, what my heart says. And I go for ethical practice. And that is the secret sauce of World Talent Economic Forum.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And it is a powerful secret sauce indeed. And to your point about collaboration, this will be an ongoing relationship that we in the Transhumanist Party have with Bangladesh, the World Talent Economy Forum. I do hope to visit at some point in time. I hope to do it when the fuel prices are cheaper. Unfortunately, the war in Iran has escalated fuel prices sharply so that I really have to plan many months in advance. I wanted to go to Dublin this year. It didn't work out because the fuel prices are just so exorbitant, but maybe later this year I will be able to travel first to Europe, and then I'll see where I can go after that in 2027. But we have some further good feedback from our viewers. So on the microfinance subject, Rudy Hoffman writes, I'm proud to support Kiva, which is a microloan program. And yes, Kiva has been in existence in the United States since the early 2010s, as far as I can recall, and maybe its origins are even earlier than that. And Mike Lazine also writes on one of the previous threads of conversation, Dr. Sharif is right. Many faiths have a lot of crossover. Each one has a creation story, complete destruction story, etc. But there are some exceptions. Some faiths do none of the above. But I think some of the principles for living have even more crossover among various religious systems, as long as one interprets them in this more open, non-dogmatic way that you are doing, Sharif. There is a lot of crossover, in my view. I do often have concerns about people having overly narrow or dogmatic or intolerant interpretations, and that can fuel some conflicts and wars throughout history and even in our time. Now, Kevin Branciforte writes, integrity and wisdom is usually at the core of most businesses that are successful long term. You know a lot about that, Sharif. Business leaders that lack wisdom generally fall into short term strategies which do not last for long term. And that could lead to loss of customers. It could lead to the business becoming insolvent. It could lead to competitors that have more integrity and treat their customers better prevailing. So for business leaders, I think it's important to learn the lessons in your book, Sharif. And it does seem to me, when I observe various business enterprises, there are those who understand the benefit of wise long-term thinking, and there are others who just try to maximize short-term advantages, short-term profits, the quarterly earnings, but they do that at the expense of the long-term future of the organization and of the customers whom they serve. So how would you recommend approaching those business leaders and getting them to think more in the long term? What could change their minds? What could change the way in which they behave?
If you ask me from South Asian context, I can give you very specific two examples. One is Tata, the Ratan Tata Group, perhaps one of the largest group of companies in this planet. He has Tata Trust. Tata has long-term heritage. I know Western world has a lot of good company, long heritage of developing communities, contributing in the business industries, developing better community with ethical practice. Tata Trust contribute a lot for education, research, innovation, and so on. So those who are interested, they can request the Tata Trust for your research and innovation and so on. Secondly, even in Bangladesh has some very large company. I want to share about Square Group of companies. You can find this Square Group has very good ethical business practice. Excellent. How they contribute for the pharma industry, right? You do research for healthcare and so on. Pharma industries, for hospital, for all of the things. Everybody trusts them. The same way, Japan is a very good example of a wisdom practice in their industrial level, right? Japan is very bad at sales and marketing, but anybody's know that it's a Japanese product, they will buy it. Japan has a very good practice of quality products. So you can see this Mitsubishi's and so on. It has a very good example. So all of the big companies, in somehow, they have to practice it for long-term survival. Short term, you can make a billions and trillions dollar and then you go. Nothing. But if you have long-term plan, if you have ethical practice in the business, what I said, you earn trust of the people, which is most valuable component in this planet. I told you, like, my first time when I want to do this podcast, I come to you, Kennedy, right? Hey, I want to do this podcast. It's called trust. I thought that you can welcome it. The same way, you have a good things, good leadership, good qualities. People has to know. And that is the way business leaders grow. That is the way political leaders grow. That is the way these spiritual leaders grow or these academic leaders grow. both in Western world and this southern part of this planet, or the South Asia.
Yes, thank you very much, Sharif, for your response and for giving some practical examples of business enterprises that one could learn from. The Tata Group, the Square Group, and various Japanese businesses. You mentioned Mitsubishi. Of course, Japanese automobiles are quite popular in the United States, and they're known for quality and durability. I own a Japanese automobile as one of my cars now. It's a Subaru Outback. I purchased it last year, and I hope that it will last me a long time. One reason why I purchased it was with the aspiration that it might last me for, say, the next 20 years. And that reputation, that trust that consumers place in products of these companies motivates those kinds of decisions. So if somebody is like me and wants a really durable car, they will think about various Japanese vehicles first, because yes, the Japanese manufacturers have that reputation for quality and consumers trust it. Now we have some more comments from our viewers. Kevin Bransaforti writes that microloan programs had a lot of support from the US finance community early on, so there was some trust there between the US finance world and those pioneers of micro lending. Then Daniel Tweed points out wisdom is not just doing wise things, but doing things wisely. And that's an interesting distinction that we can explore in the future of this conversation. Mike Lazine writes, that would be nice if 10 years from now we had a transhumanist president of the United States. He says he will be in his early 60s 10 years from now. I will be in my late 40s. I certainly want some political change to happen by that point in time, whether it's a transhumanist president or at least a president from one of the larger political parties that espouses some sympathy to the ideals of transhumanism. I wouldn't mind if it were a Republican president or a Democratic Party president who said, I think transhumanism is a valuable philosophy and an important way of looking at the world. Even that kind of acknowledgement in 10 years' time, I will take as a victory. But speaking of political leaders, Rudy Hoffman writes, would we agree that most aspirational leaders would claim that they value wisdom, ethics, and shared values, but there seems to be a disconnect at the policy level? And Mike Lazine also writes, the wise politicians think outside the box, right? And so many politicians do not want to do this. So it seems a lot of politicians, too, they have this herd mentality or this tribal mentality where they may say certain things that sound reasonable, even sound wise, but when they're put in that position of power, they still act like conventional politicians. And we see that in the United States a lot because people campaign on a variety of promises and they'll say, well, I'll do this for you, I'll do that for you, I'll solve your problems for you. And then when they get into office, it seems like they govern as typical politicians. And maybe we could say in some cases it's not really their fault, maybe they're trying, but the system encourages more conformist behavior or more status quo behavior. But what do you think of this issue of politicians maybe facing incentives or pressures to just conform rather than having this out of the box thinking that we really want? And I'll bring Muhammad Yunus as an example. He didn't really aspire to be a politician. He spent his whole life as an economist. And then when he was in his mid 80s, this situation came about and people looked to him and they said, oh, this is a wise man. This is a knowledgeable man, an accomplished man who can solve our problems. So he was put in that position, but he didn't really compete for it. He didn't struggle for it. And I think in that regard, that made him a better leader because people already saw this man is wise. This man is who he says he is. But what about the other politicians? How can we incentivize them to think outside the box?
Excellent. I go for a model. Like I told you, before I write these books, I go for a model. I engage with the political parties. I help them to develop better plan for the communities, better healthcare, better education, and so on. I motivate them. Real politicians, I motivate them. Hey, if you do this wisdom practice, it will be helpful for your career. What is the purpose of the people? We need to serve for our communities, right? So the same way, what is the purpose of the politician? He or she need to serve for his or her communities. My job's to help my people, support my people, contribute for the peoples. That is called humanity, right? But if I come with the power, I said, hey, I come here, so I'm the most strongest man in this room, you have to pay money to me. This is not wisdom. And that is the way, I'm sorry to say, Western world has a lot of brilliant things. USA has world best research center, best university, best army, best financial institution, best intellectuals, but lack of wisdom in politics.
I completely agree with you, Sharif. The Western world is plagued by a lack of wisdom in politics. We have been trying to change that in the US Transhumanist Party for the past nearly 12 years. We were formed in October 2014. But I will say, given the pervasive situation in American politics and Western politics more generally right now, it is an uphill battle. It will continue to be an uphill battle, but that's one reason why we have friends in South Asia, friends in Africa, friends in Latin America who could hopefully help us. And we have another great comment from Virginia Mirtas. This should be the movement, and it needs to be defended by everyone so that collectively we can build a future with more equity, opportunities, health, and quality of life. Thank you very much to Virginia for those comments. And now I would like to ask Art Ramon if he has a question or comment for Sharif. We have so much engagement in the chat that we'll come back to it, but let's have a few questions from our panel.
With AI taking other jobs, it's supposed to happen in the future. There's talk that, one day you'll be able to connect to the AI itself with a brain-computer interface, and maybe that will be what pays you, is when the AI connects to your wisdom and then shares it with a hive mind. But then there are these neo-Luddites who say, well, that's going to end humanity. That's the death of humanity, because you are no longer an original human. You're connected to the hive mind. So I see this potential conflict with the neo-Luddites, but then the neo-Luddites are going to be out of a job and not have any money. So they're not going to have any power other than to just yell. And it's going to be the people who are going to be adaptable with technology who sort of continue. And it doesn't matter whether it's a brain implant or something that helps you deal with the heat, some sort of cooling system that you're going to need to not burn up because it's going to be so hot, like the people dying in Europe. So I see this kind of hive mind being something where the wisdom is shared with everyone. I have sometimes a trouble recalling things. I was trying to think neo-Luddite, but I kept thinking trilobite. The wrong word kept coming into my head, and I just couldn't find it until I asked AI, what the hell is this word? And it told me. So it would go both ways. The AI hive mind, you would extract wisdom from it, but you also give it wisdom. So it's a two-way street, but this conflict with neo-Luddites who don't want vaccines. They want to die of diseases. So, they don't want technology. They don't want vaccines. They just want to live naturally. And, when you live naturally, well, you don't evolve fast enough and you die. It's called extinction. So what are your thoughts on wisdom and, AI hive mind?
Very good questions. I just want to share a practical example just 1 week before. Few of my friends, because I have very big communities in my mobile phones and this WhatsApp group and so on, from around the world. Like I think almost 200 countries I have my communities. So from Bangladesh, very specifically a group of companies, it's named Hamim Groups, and they want to sack 10,000 people from their company because of their integrating AI in the garments industry. So the people, the general managers and other people, those who are losing their jobs, they said, hey, can you come to our office? I said, yes, why not? Because you have to explain this wisdom factor to our chairman. I said, yes, why not? And after this kind of discussion, he changed the decisions. I said, human wisdom is very important. AI cannot. Even there, I had a meeting with these satellite company chairmen in Bangladesh. I say, what you do with this satellite? He said, I go for collecting data, analyzing data for agriculture, for environment, and so on. I say that I write a scientific book on agriculture. I meet with 3,000 farmers in Bangladesh, grassroots level. Without satellite, without data, without information, they just watch the sky and they can say what will happen next 6 months. How does it come? I have evidence in my research paper. How does it come? It's called wisdom. So humans are so powerful. It has so beautiful things they have inside them, what I call heart and mind. They can do excellent work. So you should not sack these people. Better you utilize their wisdom for betterment of the company. That's why IBEON is one of the American company. They raise around $10 billion from Asia Pacific. Chairman is a Christopher Kondo. Even he built up his AI company in USA based on wisdom. Because without wisdom, you cannot run long way your corporations, your political party, anything. So we are actually running behind money, money, money. We make a money-oriented society. But we forget wisdom is the most powerful component for managing this technology company, managing political party, managing AI companies, managing satellites, and so on. So that's why from day one, I do focus on talent economy. I'm a man who's supporting human capacity. So that is the real example I'm doing with my people.
Could I jump in on Art's comment?
Wait a moment. It's
Sure.
The whole chasing money. Okay, well, you have to chase money, and you have to get it from people who print it out of thin air, and then you have to pay it back with interest. I mean, come on. How is it that they're able to print money from thin air, and you can't? So yeah, I think chasing wisdom is probably better than chasing money because the money is just printed out of thin air anyway. So yeah, definitely a better resource is the wisdom.
Yeah, Art, your comment about hive mind put me in memory of my first Star Trek convention that I went to in 1973 with my older brother, and he actually got to ask Gene Roddenberry a question. They called him the Great Bird of the Galaxy. There was a big thunderous applause when he showed up at the convention, and my brother said, Gene, what do you think of the concept of utopia? And Gene Roddenberry said, well, some people think the ant and beehive colony is a kind of utopia. I personally do not agree, and the room erupted in thunderous applause. So we need to be careful that this hive and utopia thing does not merge in a way that destroys our humanity. So just you put me in mind of that experience at the I think it was 1973 or 74 Equicon at the Los Angeles Marriott Hotel at the LA airport. My first big Star Trek convention, and obviously had a big formative effect on me. But yeah, Gene Roddenberry should be held up as one of our wisdom pioneers, I think. But back to you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you become a mindless drone, then you're no longer useful. I mean, you need to be a human to have the wisdom. If you just become a mindless drone, well, a robot can do that. You don't need a human. So yeah, and definitely not becoming the drone is what needs to be done. So anyway.
Indeed.
And this kind of brings up the topic that we've been discussing on Discord about historical examples of benevolent dictatorships. And some people will say, well, dictatorship can never be benevolent. But you could look at back Cyrus, who freed his prisoners and invented human rights. You could look at Tito, and you could look at Nasser, and you could look at the dictator of Singapore, who brought about tremendous advancement, but it was at a cost of some forms of repression. But this is a question that we also need to grapple with in the wisdom conversation: is there ever a warranted place for a benevolent dictatorship?
Well, yeah. I mean, you're stopping free will from people who want the free will to destroy.
Yeah.
We kind of already do that with prisons, so I don't think it's that far off.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you need rules for a game, so you can never get to zero, non-authoritarianism. You're always going to have like a 1%, rule-based aspect of whatever system you're in. Okay, I'll shut up and go back to you.
Yes, very interesting conversation, and I appreciate all of the threads and how we're interrelating them, because that's one of the purposes of our virtual enlightenment salons, where we truly try to be transdisciplinary. John McPherson writes, we are not the Borg, so we don't want to be assimilated into a collective that dissolves our individuality. And if we have some interconnectivity, say brain-computer interfaces, where we might potentially at some point in time be able to directly exchange thoughts or ideas with other people, we should always have the ability to disconnect. We should always have the ability to just become our own self-contained minds again. And that's where there would need to be some really good gatekeeping between the individual and that interface, making sure the individual is always in charge of it, making sure it's done wisely and ethically. Now, Luis Arroyo points out neo-Luddism is a big thing on the left, unfortunately, and he's had some experience with it. And he does say USTP should rise to the top. So thank you, Luis. And hopefully through our joint efforts, we can promote a more techno-positive vision that still safeguards human rights and human dignity and human opportunity, and combat some of that neo-Luddism. Sharif, I think you did an excellent thing in terms of persuading that business not to lay off workers, and instead looking at the beneficial human attributes of these individuals and how they could be deployed. Because I always think layoffs are a poor idea unless a company is just bleeding money. But even in the United States, prior to the late 1970s, layoffs were quite rare. And most organizations had this philosophy that they needed to take care of their workers. Between about 1910 and 1980, that was the predominant corporate philosophy in the United States. And it worked reasonably well because it encouraged loyalty on the part of the workers. But I think there's a key insight there that more current prevalent corporate practices miss. And that is, a human being isn't just good for one task. Humans can learn and humans can be repurposed. And often it is easier for a human to learn a new task than to train an AI or to build a robot specific to that task. Now, there are circumstances where you want automation, where you want robotics, where you want AI. And in particular, I think you want automation in cases where the labor is stressful, where it's dangerous, where it can harm human beings' health or it can harm their happiness. But I think there are many tasks where if you have automation, whether it's one of those or whether it's a more intellectual task, then the humans can be put to do something else, even something related, but interacting with the machines, using the machines, configuring the machines, making sure the machines do an accurate job. Humans have so many skills beyond just doing a particular prescribed routine. And I think, of course, humans need to learn that they have those advantages within them as well. Hence, your work in cultivating talent and getting people to see that talent. Because sometimes a lot of people are stuck in this idea that they are one job function too. And often we even see this in the United States and other Western countries. People will associate their entire identities with a particular line of work, like I am a plumber, or I am a computer programmer, or I am this kind of specialist in this particular area that I know well and I've done for 20 years, and hence that is who I am. But really, they're a lot more than that as human beings, and they can learn a lot more skills. So, Sharif, I want to ask you, as part of the World Talent Economy Forum, what do you do to bring out that recognition in people that they could do a wide range of tasks, including tasks that don't even exist yet?
So one small thing I always focus, capacity building. Very simple things of the human resources. Everything we have in nature, from Western corporations, from innovations and so on. But capacity buildings in terms of spirituality, in terms of innovations, and how we can become better human, how we can apply it, not only theory, applied it in industry, applied it in politics, applied it in, let's say, in our academia, which is important. Take action. Action is the key component for us. So you can see I'm super busy with my actions. So when I prepare my peoples, let's say I'm preparing politicians. So when I prepare a politician, it means I get involved with the 2 million or 3 million people. So we have to take actions like this Transhumanist Parties or World Talent Economic Forum together. We are not alone, but together we have to take actions. You have to share your views in a positive way. People can understand. People will listen, and people always welcome. Sometimes some obstacle and challenge come, but it's a part of our life. So I build up research and innovation centers, like a center of excellence, and we go for capacity building, what you call Wisdom Leadership Academy. We can build in USA, you can build in Bangladesh. Together we can do all of the transform like microfinance, right? So we can welcome microfinance from Bangladesh. From Western world, we can welcome climate finance. So this is the community development. Now the modern world based on communities. So how we can build up better communities. So very simple formula.
Yes, thank you very much, Sharif, for sharing that formula. And now let's go to Daniel Tweed if he has another question or comment for Sharif. This might be a good time.
Yeah, I love what you're doing, Sharif. You've got such an education that you've given yourself and so many other people that have participated in your I call them wisdom talent economy forums. But yeah, I think what we need is a microfinance for the future, a microfinance of biosphere ethics, and a microfinance of Kardashev aspirations, that we're not stuck on this one little tiny spaceship, and we need to have policies and procedures and evidence-based networkings and networks that bring us this things like the All Hands Coalition. That I'm excited that we're in partnership with the Pirate Party, the U.S. Transhumanist Party, All Hands for a Free Future Coalition, and I think we're developing all kinds of more humane policies that because continuous improvement is the watchword of wisdom. And you get that through the scientific method. You observe, you make hypotheses, you experiment, and you reach conclusions, and then you repeat the process. Lather, rinse, repeat. It's and then I love the idea of combining this with the Japanese concept of ikigai, life worth, which are 4 things. Oddly enough, the scientific method has 4 things: what you're good at, what you love doing, what you can be paid for, what the world needs. Those 4 things, where they all intersect, that's your life worth. That's your ikigai. So we have these laws of 4 that keep repeating. Even in life, you have birth, you have maturity, reproduction, you have decay and death. There's another 4, archetype. So yeah, I think it's kind of nice. And there's the comment about the WISE protocol that you mentioned with the 4 aspects. So great work, and looking forward to more of it. And I've been on your forum many times, and so I guess I'll live on in some archaeological record because of that. So thanks. So I never got my book written, but it's coming. And I'm in the meantime, there's all the evidence of my interactions on your show. So thanks again for wisdom and showing up.
Yeah, I love to learn from each and every culture. I want to engage with each and every culture. Every culture has good things. Every religion has good things. So the more different cultural people work together, what you are discussing about this, you have representative in South Asia, in Africa, in South America, you can enrich yourself. We understand that that there are many good people around the world. People always come to me and say, I'm very frustrated, a lot of bad people behind me. I said, no, there are many good people we have. We have to build your community based on good people. So I believe that with this wisdom affairs, we can change this humanity. We can change these industrial innovations. We can go for educational revolutions, even political movement in a positive way. And when we have real ethical practice from core of our heart and mind, we can bring maximum success for our life. And then we become real human, real people, real positive people for this society. That is my objective and that is my vision. And I always welcome my friends, be a good human.
Yes, be a good human. That's great, universal and humanistic advice. Thank you very much, Sharif. We have more comments on some of the topics that have been discussed. So Kevin Bransaforti writes, countries where professionals are subject to rigorous codes of ethics help guide businesses to better decisions and transparency. And he also notes American, European, and Canadian financial professionals have rigorous ethical standards, which are very similar. And I think, Sharif, you noted that there is a certain quality that comes from American and Western businesses, but politicians are not audited as businesses are. This may be where some of the difference is coming from. There are some audits of U.S. political organizations, but as far as Kevin is aware, they're not as extensive or rigorous as they should be. And he recommends auditing the Fed. So the Fed is the Federal Reserve Bank in the United States. And Art Ramon pointed out, well, money is just printed. The Fed prints money in effect by essentially altering what banks can borrow from the Federal Reserve System. And sometimes the Fed will add money to the balance sheets of major banks in the United States in order to increase the money supply. And the Federal Reserve targets certain inflation rates, often overshooting those targets, leading to more inflation than is intended. Of course, in my view, based on my education in economics, I don't think any inflation is good. I think price stability or even deflation in certain sectors are more preferable for affordability and consumer well-being. But to Kevin's point, there aren't as many audits of politicians as there are of businesses. So there are not as many ways of holding politicians accountable. Now, Kevin also writes, top talent and visionaries do not remain with companies which do not practice mature value systems. And in certain economies, it's easy for those top talented people to find other places of employment. It's harder in a political system. Yes, somebody could emigrate to a different country, but throughout the world, sometimes we see many of the same problems, and it's a much harder process than just finding a different organization to work for. So in terms of people who want to change the system, I'm curious as to what you think can work in a peaceful way. So in Bangladesh, of course, there was an upheaval that led to the recent political change, and it wasn't entirely peaceful. What happened after that, after those initial upheavals, was a more peaceful transition. But how would you recommend for those who seek change politically to pursue it in the most constructive manner, to pursue it so that hopefully the result is peaceful, so that it's not chaos or upheaval or people getting hurt, so that it's more along the lines of reform that benefits everybody, that uplifts everybody?
Thank you. Very good questions. What Socrates says, know thyself, right? This is a part of wisdom. First, I have to change my inner thought process, my ethical standards, my activities, my behaviors, and everything. So when I change myself, then I can go and join with other communities. Let's say in the politics, I only targeted 4 to 5 political leaders, and I work with them closely with their political strategy, with their urban plan, what their people need, with conference, how they can get economical benefits. And that was so positive that they become ministers. Still, I'm working with them. So first, we have to change ourselves. If I say I want to change the world, maybe it's not possible. But if I can change myself, maybe I start with the small communities. And small, in the presentation I said, small micro initiative. Let's say after 5 years and 7 years or 2 years, it becomes huge positive impact. So start with a small, be positive, but we need a greater visions, right? I appreciate it. You want to change your system, but it's not overnight. It's a small initiative. First, we change myself. I have to change myself. Then I have to focus on my community, how I can transfer my knowledge, my ethical practice to them. Then step by step, you become bigger and bigger and bigger and so on. This is the very simplest way we can change the system from our inside. So first we have to know thyself. We have to know ourselves properly.
Very interesting. So change starts from within oneself and then it moves out first to smaller groups, then to larger groups until it encompasses the entire society. So it's a more incremental, more gradual approach to change, but it can be more sustainable, more lasting if it's done that way rather than if it's done all at once or through an upheaval. So thank you for that. And Mike Lazine wonders, wouldn't pragmatism also account for what you're saying in terms of some of the approaches that you're discussing? Is there a strong aspect of pragmatism to what you're talking about? And is pragmatism part of wisdom?
Exactly. I only focus on humanity. My only focus is humanity. I do not focus on what background they are from, what culture they are from, what area they are from. If you have understand the human are so powerful, that's why I call it talent economy, right? Talents, people community, people ecosystem, people culture. That is the most valuable thing in this planet. In Islam, we call it Ashraful Makhlukat, best of the best creator in this planet. So we do focus on our capacity in a positive way with sympathy and empathy, and we bring more success.
Yes, thank you very much, Sharif. And our friend Daniel Tweed writes that this is an example of pragmatic wisdom and the knowledge to back it up. So thank you to Daniel. And we have a rather interesting question from one of our audience members, and this is in regard to artificial intelligence. So Mike Lazine wonders, would artificial intelligence or artificial general intelligence or artificial superintelligence, if they emerge, need to be sentient in order to be wise? Do you think any AI today has aspects of wisdom? Of course, we don't think AI systems today are sentient, but there's a possibility that's acknowledged in the Transhumanist Bill of Rights that someday sentience might emerge in the AI systems of the future. So do you think that would be a necessary precondition for them to be wise? Or could they even be wise as tools? Could ChatGPT be wise, for example?
Very good question. Actually, ethics, wisdom come first before we go for invention or anything. So ethical AI is a very important component for AI corporations. They have to focus on ethical AI. They should not destroy human economic conditions, or they should not prepare themselves for losing job or anything. So from day one, if we can convince, I told you that iBeyond, the AI company, I convinced them for ethical AI. So definitely in the futures, AI or AGI or ASI need to be sentient to be wise. And we need ethical AI for this industry.
Yes, so perhaps ethical AI can even precede wise AI or sentient AI, because ethics can be a part of the design of AI systems. And I think to some extent that part is already happening. So an AI system like ChatGPT or Grok or Gemini, it will answer most questions, but there are some questions that either it won't answer or it will try to redirect the user away from. So if somebody asks about how to inflict harm, the AI system will try to dissuade them. If somebody asks how to bioengineer a virus, the AI system will try to dissuade them. And those are some obvious examples. There could be more subtle issues, like some people might try to use AI chatbots as personal therapists, and perhaps various AI systems are not sufficiently well developed for that purpose. So there has to be some nuance, there has to be some care in how those AI systems answer people's questions. And those answers may not always be what people were immediately looking for or what they wanted to hear. And AI systems sometimes need to be designed to not always just affirm what the user was trying to get. So not to always agree with the user, not to always say, oh, you're brilliant and you're right, but to potentially offer some caveats, offer some nuance, offer something that that person might need to see, but might not necessarily have wanted to see. So that is important. And Mike Lazine also writes, good answer, Dr. Sharif, with regard to ethical AI versus wise AI. So thank you for that. Now we have a few more comments. Kevin Bransaforti writes, while the U.S. federal government can print money, it does not mean that they shouldn't be audited. The core issue is the incorrect distribution of assets. So some of that new money that the Federal Reserve prints, it reaches the large banks first. It reaches people connected to those financial institutions earlier than it reaches the general population. And by the time it reaches the general population, price levels are inflated. So certain goods, and often these are large goods like homes, for instance, become less affordable to people as a result. And yes, auditing the Federal Reserve has been a common suggestion by various individuals in the United States. Politicians of a more libertarian persuasion have supported auditing the Fed. And one example of a politician who I think exemplifies this kind of integrity and wisdom is Dr. Ron Paul. He is 91 years old now. He served as a member of Congress for many decades, and he championed this cause of auditing the Fed. But for him, it was particularly important to always vote according to his principles, to always vote according to what he thought was the best policy, and not really care about having political power, not really care about winning, but always acting with integrity. And that's the reputation that he has now as a result of this. Now, here's an interesting question. Mike Lazine points out, curiosity is good, but curiosity also needs caution, since kids can be curious and that can get them in trouble for various reasons. So I wonder, in terms of curiosity, is there a balance? Like, for instance, you could ask an AI system a lot of questions, and many of those questions are quite useful. But there might be some questions you don't want to ask it, like, how do you engineer a virus? That would be curiosity taken too far. So what do you think is that balance? And particularly for kids, since you work in education, and I think there are so many powerful tools now available for young minds, many more than when I was a student, and I would have really appreciated those tools. I think I would have used them well, but there are some kids especially who don't have the maturity to use them well. So what would be that balance as you would strike it?
Thank you. Very good question. That's why good teachers, good mentor, always very important. Let's say George Kosmosky was the mentor for Michael Dell, right? So big entrepreneurs and everyone has a good mentors. So curiosity is important, because if you want to be knowledgeable, you need to be curious. And you need a mentors or ethical practice, which is actually create a better diagram for you that this is good. This way you can learn, and in this way you can gain your knowledge. Step by step, you can, based on your experience, based on your consistency, based on your ethical practice and knowledge, you can be wise step by step. So I want to say for children, we should open their door for curiosity, but definitely we need to add a good mentor for them or good teacher for them who can guide them for their curiosities and their practice and so on.
Yes, so mentorship is really important, and this is where another human advantage comes in, because while AIs can also participate in the mentorship, so Tom Ross, for example, advocated providing an AI tutor for every student. But I think AI tutors can be an important part in that mentorship process, but they're still not enough. So children need to have adult human role models that are constructive, in part because those are the people that those children will try to emulate. So you could have an AI tutor that gives you knowledge, that structures a lesson plan for you, that tries to learn your individual attributes as a student and what you need to know, what you already know well, and that's fine. But a student, especially a child, isn't going to say, I want to be like this AI when I grow up. They're going to say, I want to be like this person when I grow up. And that's where human mentorship is important. And there's a quotation from you that Daniel Tweed has highlighted. If you want to be knowledgeable, you need to be curious. So let's take that with us. And again, I think a great deal of curiosity is to be encouraged. I think curiosity is also natural to a lot of children, especially, but with the flaws in contemporary education systems, often that curiosity gets beaten out of them. Often not physically, more metaphorically, but they get discouraged. They start thinking of learning as an imposition because of how schools have worked, especially in the 20th century. But there's a different approach. And I think through technology, we can cultivate a better approach. And you asked to think about essentially how can transhumanists contribute to uplifting people, including in South Asia, through education, through healthcare. And there are a lot of ways that technology can be brought to bear, but I think in combination with human mentors and human wisdom. So thank you very much, Sharif, and our friend Mariam Abbas writes very meaningful and great points. So thank you very much for joining us, Mariam. Now, we have a few minutes left in our salon. We really appreciate you staying up essentially into the early morning in Bangladesh. So, Sharif, I wanted to ask you to provide some concluding thoughts. What else do you want to tell our viewers that perhaps we didn't have a chance to delve into so far? Or what points would you like to reinforce as your parting message?
One thing is very important, learning from different cultures and cultural interactions. We need this kind of platforms, this kind of political institutions, right? Engaging with different cultures, understanding with the different cultures, different people, different views, different comments. And go for applied these things for the better humanity in between our communities. So I request everyone work together with these transhumanist parties and World Talent Economic Forum. Be a good human and let's practice your wisdom. AI is very important, all of the great inventions is very important, but definitely human is the most important component in this planet, most important thing in this planet. So we have to respect it and let's practice wisdom. Trust me, it's give you extraordinary result.
Yes, indeed.
all.
Let us practice wisdom. Let us apply it in our lives. I would encourage everyone to subscribe to the World Talent Economy Forum YouTube channel. Sharif broadcasts there with an amazing frequency. He's always a source of great wisdom and insight, and he brings people who similarly are sources of great wisdom and insight. Please find his book, The Wisdom Advantage, online. You can order it for just €5. It's a great deal. So here is the URL, and hopefully this conversation and our virtual enlightenment salons generally have contributed to an increase in your wisdom so that we may all live long and prosper.
Thank you. Thank you.